Hey there, welcome back to the course. I hope you're enjoying it. In this lesson, we'll design a couple more screens for this version of our sample app, and in the next videos, we'll redesign it and make it more iOS 7 friendly. After that, you should be able to handle the tools pretty well and apply what you've learned to your personal project. You'll have to spend some time designing on your own, figuring out how to resolve design challenges that are specific to your project using what you've learned. This is crucial to really interiorize the lessons of this course. The screens we'll be designing in this lesson are the screens from the camera flow. So open your design file from the previous lesson or the start file in this course folder. We'll start by creating a new page, so click on this page 1 button and then on this little plus. This will create a new artboard. Go back to the first page and select the whole frame. Copy it and paste it in this new page. Once you've done that, you can get rid of everything that's in there except the iPhone 5 frame. Now let's have a look at the mockups to see what we have to do. Okay, the first thing we need to take care of is the lens of the camera. So let's get to it. We'll start by drawing a rectangle of 320 pixels by 423 pixels. We'll use a gradient going from 4D5257 to 2026 to B, and we'll change the general opacity, so not the opacity of one of the stop point of the gradient over here, not here, but if you go back you can change the general opacity of the layer here. We'll change it to 90%. Okay, now let's draw another rectangle, actually a square, of 306 by 306. You can center it and we'll duplicate it. So right click on this rectangle in the left panel, click duplicate and hide this copy for now. Now, select these two shapes and subtract the first one from the second one by clicking here. We'll add a shadow to this new shape. So we want Y2, blur 4, that's good, and a black with opacity of 50%, so we're good. This will give the illusion of a hole here, and this hole will be the lens of the camera. So let's call this shape lens. We also need a border around the square hole, but if we apply the border to the whole shape, there will also be a border on the outside, and we don't want this. So we'll unhide this square, make sure it is well positioned just over the hole, and select the fill so it becomes transparent. And now we can use the border, so we'll have two borders. The first one on the outside, 1 pixel, you want it to be white, semi-transparent, 20%, and the second border will be on the inside, 1 pixel too. Oh, this is this one, inside 1 pixel black. With the white border outside and the black border inside, this reinforces the sensation of depth. And we'll call this shape frame. Now let's add an image below the lens. We'll use the same one as before. You can find it in the assets folder of this course. So here it is, the photo. We'll drag and drop it just over here. And we'll try to resize it. This is way too big. Okay, maybe a bit bigger. We want it to be big enough to be able to see it through this big black shape. in order to show that the user is using a camera and taking a square picture. So let's put it below the lens. And it seems fine. We can see it below the whole black shape. This looks a bit messy, so let's use a mask to hide what's outside of the screen. In order to do that, we'll use this shape in the lens shapes. So select it, Alt-Alt, and drag it below the image to duplicate it. We'll group these two and use the rectangle as a mask, like this. And we'll rename this group image. Okay, what's next? Let's have a look at the mockups. We need a cancel button and we need to take care of the lower part of the screen. Okay, let's start with the cancel button. We'll start with some text, so hit T and write cancel. You want to make sure it's Helvetica Neue, with a size of 12 and a color of white, and also make sure that you have a tracking of 0.46. Select the text and add a shadow. You can use shadows on text too. We'll change this to 1 and the blur to 0, and make sure you have a black shadow with an opacity of 50. See the black shadow? Now let's take care of the button. We'll draw a rectangle with a height of 30 pixels. 30. Place it just below the cancel text layer. Give it a radius of 3. And you want to make sure that you have padding of 10 pixels on each side, so let's make it a bit smaller. What does it say? 10 and 12, so okay, 10 and 10, we're good. Now let's change the color of this button. We'll use a gradient going from 3C3E40 to 272A2B. Now work on the recessed look of this button. We'll add a glow at the bottom using the shadow tool. You want to put 1 in the white field and 0 in the blur field, and we'll change the color to a semi-transparent white with an opacity of 20%. And we'll also add an inner shadow with Y1, blur 2, and black 50%. It should be the color by default. We also add a border of 1 pixel inside, and you want it to be black. Group these two layers and call the group cancel button. Zoom out and place the button correctly aligned on the left with the frame. Okay, let's take care of the lower part of the screen now. We'll start by drawing a rectangle. We'll give it the proper size, which is 320 by 145. Make sure it is aligned at the bottom. And we'll use a gradient. The first color is 5C6062. And the second one will be 121515 again. Okay. We want to add a border at the top of the shape, and because we want this rectangle to look like it's overlapping the lens, we'll use two inner shadows, a black one and a white one. So the first one, we put 1 in the white field, 0 in the blur field, and we want it to be solid black. And the second one will have 2 in the white field, 0 in the blur field, and we'll choose a semi-transparent white, opacity of 30%. Make sure that this white inner shadow is under the black shadow, and it has to be 2 pixels large because the first line of pixels will be hidden by the first black shadow. So what we'll do is that we'll deselect it, we'll place it below the first one, the black one, and we'll select it again. This gives us two 1 pixels lines, one which is black and the second one is a semi-transparent white. Okay, let's now take care of the camera button. We'll start by drawing a circle. We'll give it a radius of 45, so a diameter of 90 pixels. Center it. We'll use a gradient going from 3 times to 0A 3 times. Okay. And as usual, we'll use a white glow on the outside. In order to do that, we'll use the border tool. So outer border on the outside 1 pixel, and you want to choose white with an opacity of 5% should be enough. Yeah. We also add an inner shadow, Y1, blur 3, and black 50% by default. With these two effects, this looks like a hole. And we're going to draw another circle inside of this one. Let's put it above the first one. We want to have a black border of 4 pixels, so we need to have a circle with a radius of 41 pixels instead of 45. So that gives us a diameter of 82 pixels, like this. If we center it, we should have a black border of 4 pixels all around. And you want to change the color to white. And finally, we'll add a blue circle. Again, the white border will be 4 pixels large, so our radius will be 37 pixels. So we'll have a diameter of 74 this time. Center it in order to have a 4 pixels white border. We'll use a gradient. The first color will be this blue, 9CC5E5 to 03275. Okay, we'll also add an inner shadow, Y1, blur 1. And for the color, a black shadow would be a bit too dark, so we'll use a shade of blue that I've selected. The X value is 082C5A with an opacity of 70%. Okay, let's zoom out to see what it looks like. This looks okay. We need the camera icon on the button now, so we'll go to the first page. In the navigation, the button bar, the camera tab, and you want to select the camera. you can copy it and paste it on the button. Okay. Let's resize this icon because it's a bit too small now. 36 by 36 should be enough. We'll change the color to solid white. And you can get rid of the inner shadow. And we'll keep the shadow, but we'll make sure that the opacity is 30% and not 50%. Okay, I think we're done for this button. Let's group these and call the group camera button. Now, we also add a way for the user to pick an existing picture. This wasn't in the mockups, but since we've shown our mockups to people, a lot of them have told us that they would like to be able to use existing pictures. So we'll do that by adding a button over here. We'll start by creating a square, give it the proper size, 52 by 52. We'll add a radius of 6. And we'll use the style from the big black circle here. So right click on the name in the left panel, copy style, and then paste style to this new rectangle, like this. We'll also need a mask for the picture we're going to use. So we'll use the rectangle tool, make sure it is 44 by 44, center it inside the first square, give it a radius of 3. And now we're going to use the image from the assets folder in this course folder. You want to select the photo preview. We'll change the size to 50 by 50. Place it on top of the previous square. We'll group these and we'll use this square as a mask for the new picture we just added to our designer. Use this mask. And we'll just add a frame on top of that, just like we did with the lens. So we'll duplicate this square, Alt Alt and drag it just on top of the image. Then right click and select Use as Mask and select Ignore Underlying Mask. And uncheck the fill option so we can see the image. We'll just add a glow with the in shadow, Y0, blur 1 and spread 1, so it's all around the image, but we don't want it to be black. We want a glow, so we're going to use white. This is a bit too much, maybe 20% should be good. Yeah, this is enough. Okay, and I think we're done with the first screen. We can take a picture, a square picture, and we can add an existing picture. Before we move on, let's just rename this group. Photo preview, and we can fold this. Okay, for the next screen we'll create a new page and we'll copy paste this artboard in this new page. Let's just rename these pages. You can just click on the names. I'll call the first one Home, this one Camera Flow 1, this one Camera Flow 2. Okay. We'll keep the lens because this is the picture that the user has just taken, but we'll set the opacity of the lens to 100% in order to keep the focus of the user on the outcome of the enhancing process. Okay, now duplicate the cancel button and put this new button on the left side of the screen. We'll change the cancel button to a back button. We'll start by changing the text to a camera. But before we do that, make sure that the width option is flexible, because if it's not, if it's fixed, is what's going to happen, and we don't want that. So flexible, and change the text from cancel to camera. Adjust the size of the buttons so you have a padding of 10 pixels on both sides. We have 10 and 6, so we need to add 4 pixels over here. Yep. Now double click on the button shape, or you can click on the button layer in the left panel and press enter in order to enter the vector editing mode. We'll add a vector point on the segment, so hold Command so that Sketch places the point in the middle of the segment. Now, before we move on, we're just going to move this button 10 pixels on the left. Go back to the rectangle, enter the vector mode and select this new point and move it 10 pixels on the left by holding Shift and pressing the left arrow key on your keyboard. Change the point mode to straight, like this. Now select these two vector points, hold Shift to select them both, and move them 5 pixels on the left, so don't hold Shift but press the arrow key on your keyboard 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Move the text 5 pixels on the left too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And yeah, this looks better. Okay, let's take care of the next button now. We'll change the text to next, so make sure that the text mode, the width mode is flexible, and change the text to next. Same thing, we want to have a padding of 10 pixels on the left and on the right, so we add 14 pixels to subtract. Oh, make sure that is the rectangle, the background shape that is selected. Okay. We'll change the gradient of this button to 00C04E to 00901D. We're using green because green is the color of validation. Same thing for the border, 004E10. Change the name of the group to next button, and make sure that the button and the lens are aligned on, not the lens, I'm sorry, the frame are aligned on the right. Okay, good. Let's now take care of the filters at the bottom of the screen. So we can change the color of this big black rectangle to a solid black, and we can get rid of these two buttons. We can also get rid of the effects, the inner shadows on the shape. Now let's work on the first filter, the selected filter. We'll start by drawing a rectangle. We want it to have a width of 94 pixels and a height of 150 pixels. You want to line it on the left and, at the bottom, like this. We'll use a gradient linear one, but this time we don't want it to be vertical but horizontal, so we can move the color stops and place them on the left and on the right side of the shape. We also add two color stops, one here and one here. The colors on the outside will be the same, so it will be 13, 17, 1A. You can copy it and paste it for the color stop on the right, and the color on the side will be 1B1 F23. Copy it and paste it in the Xcode field of this color stop as well. Okay, this is good for the background. Now let's add a picture, the filter thumbnail. You can go to the assets folder of this course folder and select the filter thumbnail. Add it here and change the size to 80 by 80. Center it on this shape and add a shadow with Y1, blur 3 and black 70%. Let's zoom in a bit. We'll add some text. You want to write normal. Make sure that the size is 13. You want a tracking of 0.5. Center the text, and we'll also add a shadow Y-1, blur 0, and we want it to be black 80%. Okay. Now we're going to add a blue rectangle. We'll give it a width of 68 pixels and a height of 4 pixels. Make sure it is well centered. Change the radius to 2 or 4. Yeah, 2 is enough. And add a gradient. The one at the top will be 0A E5 FE, and the color at the bottom will be 007T B2. Okay, let's move that a little bit. Same thing for the text. This looks better. Now we're going to add a shadow to this rectangle to make it stand out. So Y2, blur 4, that's good, but the opacity will change it to 70%. Not bad. We'll also add a glow at the top, so we're going to use inner shadow, Y1, blur 2, and you want a white of 100%, like this. And we'll add another shadow to make it look like it's glowing. So add another shadow, Y0, blur 7, and we're going to use a blue 058 AC2, 60%. Okay. Zoom out. Nice. We're going to group these layers and call it filter selected. Now let's take care of the filters that are not selected. We're going to duplicate this group and place it next to the original one, the first one. You just want to make sure that it is 1 pixel away from the first one so you can see the white background below, like this. We'll change the fill to a vertical gradient so you can get rid of this stub, this one, and place this color stub at the top and this one at the bottom. Select the one at the top and change the color to 1A, 1E to 1, and the one at the bottom to 2F, 3439. Okay, good. For the picture, we're going to get rid of the shadow, but we'll add a frame with two borders, one on the outside, 1 pixel, that's good, and white 10%, and another border inside, 1 pixel, that's good, and black 100%. Okay, good. Now let's change the text to filter 1. Make sure the text is still centered. And now we're going to change the color of this rectangle to gray. So we'll have a gradient going from 4B5257 to 28 to D32. Okay, get rid of these effects. Good. And we want to add an embossed look to the rectangle, so we add a white glow using the inner shadow tool. So Y1, blur 1, and white 30%. Good. And we will give it a recess fill by using a border that looks hollow. So border outside 1 pixel, and you want to use a gradient. The color at the top will be black, so 6 times 0. And the color at the bottom will be lighter, 1D to 1 to 4. Okay. Let me just make a quick side note here. For the gradient we've used before, we picked a color at the top that was light and a darker color at the bottom, for instance like this. This gives the impression that the shape is convex, but if we do the contrary, with the dark color at the top and the lighter color at the bottom, this gives the impression that the shape is concave. And that's what we're trying to achieve with the border here. Okay, let's get rid of this. To reinforce the impression that we're trying to achieve, you should know what to do by now, which is add a glow at the bottom using a shadow, Y1, blur 0, and white 20%. Okay. Now copy paste this unselected filter twice. We'll change the name first, filter unselected 1. Make sure that you have a black space of 1 pixels between the two. Do that again. Okay, we'll change the text here to filter 2 and the text here to filter 3. Let's just change the name of these groups as well. Filter unselected 2. Oh, missing an E here. and filter unselected 3. Now group these 4 and the black rectangle over here in a group that we'll call filters, and use this rectangle as a mask like this. Now we're going to place the filters group below the lens in the left panel like this, and I think we're done with the filters page. We'll finish our work on this version of the app with the last step in the camera flow. So let's have a look at the mockups to see what we have to do. Okay, we have a top bar here, we have 2 text fields, actually 1 text field and 1 button, and we have this element that allows us to choose on which networks we want to share the picture. Okay, so we'll start by adding a page over here. We can call it camera flow 3. Let's go back to this page, copy the frame, the entire artboard, and paste it in this new page. You can get rid of the filters. Also delete this square shape inside the lens shape. You can delete the frame as well. We'll start by resizing this lens, this big rectangle. We'll give it a height of 52 pixels. Let's zoom in, change the title of this layer to top bar instead of lens, and move these 2 buttons so you have 11 margin at the top and also at the bottom like this. Okay, we'll change the text here to edit, but first make sure that the alignment is on the left. So edit. Check the current padding between the text and the border of the box on the right, so 32. We need it to be 10 pixels, so we have to select these 2 vector points and move them 22 pixels on the left. 1, 2, like this. Now let's take care of this button. This will be the share button. So we have to change the text to share, make sure the alignment is on the left. And like for the other button, we need to have a padding of 10 pixels on the left and on the right. This is 3, so we need the button to be 7 pixels bigger. Let's make sure we're selecting this shape with +7 and yeah, like this. Okay, let's now take care of the image. We can take it out this group. Same thing for this rectangle. So we can get rid of the group image, and you want to make sure that you unselect the use as mask option for this folder. Let's now resize this picture. We'll give it a size of 72 by 72. This is the thumbnail version of the image. And we'll use this rectangle as a background. Let's make it a bit bigger. For the color, we'll use C9CBCD. Okay. Now we need a box for the caption. So let's move this a bit and draw a rectangle. You want to give it a width of 306 pixels and a height of 90 pixels. Make sure it is below the image so I can see the image on top of it, like this. Give it a radius of 4 and change the color to 6 times E. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. We'll give it a border of 1 pixel. You want it to be inside, and the color will be 6 times B. Make sure it is well centered. Alright. And we'll add a shadow to this box. So white 1, blur 4, that's good, but maybe 30% would be better, yes. And we also want a glow at the top, so as usual, inner shadow, white 2, blur 0, and white 80%. And move the image so that you have a 9 pixels margin at the top, at the bottom, and on the left. Okay, now let's add some text. You want to write add a caption. We'll change the weight to light and the color to 6 times 9. Give it a size of 13. We're using a thin typeface with a light color to indicate that this is a placeholder text that the user can modify. Alright, let's align it at the top and make sure you have a 9 pixels margin between these two elements. Group these layers, so the caption, the image, and the box, and call this group caption. We can also call this rectangle box. Next, we're going to duplicate this box. We'll get rid of the image. We'll change its name to place and change the size of the box to a height of 44 pixels with the same width. Now let's change the text to add a place. But because this is a button that takes us to a list of places and not a placeholder text, we're going to make it a bit bigger. So we're going to use a size of 14, Helvetica Neue medium, and a darker shade of gray. 6 times 3 should be enough. Yes. Let's move the text. We need a place icon over here. We're going to use the icon from the mockups template. So you can copy and paste this icon over here. Let's resize it. Give it a width of 15 and a height of 20. I don't really like this circle. I find it a bit too big. So let's say 5 by 5 and make sure it is well centered. Select these two shapes, click here. Okay, that's fine. Now let's change the gradient. We go from 91 3 times. Oh, make sure the gradient is correctly aligned with a color stop at the top and a color stop at the bottom. So the color stop at the top will be 3 times 91 and the color stop at the bottom will be 3 times C0. Okay. We'll also use a border inside. The color will be 9C, 3 times 9C, 9C, 9C. Okay. And as usual, to give it a holo look, we'll use a shadow at the bottom, Y1, blur 0, and white 80% and a black inner shadow at the top, so Y2 blur 2, this is a bit too dark, 10% should be enough. Alright, make sure you have 13 pixels margin between the border of this box and the icon, and between the text and the icon, like this. Okay, what's next? The share text. So let's use the text tool, write it all caps, we'll change the weight to bold, okay, fine, and the color to 6x5. We'll also use an inner shadow. Y1 blur 1 and white 30%, and align it on the left. Okay, let's now take care of the social networks we can select. We'll duplicate this box. Let's call it social networks. You can get rid of the place icon, but you want to make the box 3 times taller. Now let's create a rectangle, which will be the divider. So you want it to be quite thin, 1 pixel for the height, and 304 pixels for the width. Why 304 and not 306? Because the box has a width of 306 pixels and an inside border of 1 pixel on each side. So once you've done that, make sure you center it well. And you can call this new shape horizontal divider. To place it correctly, we have to have a look at the box position. So in the Y field we have 284. Let's copy this, paste it in the Y coordinates of this shape, and we want to add 43 pixels because one row is 44 pixels tall and the divider has a height of 1 pixel. Okay. Now duplicate this line. Oh, but before we do that, we need to give it the right color. So choose the color and use the same color as the border. Now you can duplicate it and make sure you place it just 1 pixel below and change the color to a semi-transparent white. 80% should be enough. Now let's group these two, and you can call the group horizontal divider 2, that's fine. And we need another one, so copy paste it, make sure it is exactly over the previous one, so you can just add 44 pixels over here. Okay, we're good. We'll finish the table by adding a central divider, so we need another rectangle. With a width of 1 pixel and a height of 132 pixels. Let's move this and change the color to the same color as the border. Make sure it is well centered. Okay. Now we're going to use this text, but first we're going to change the color to 4C5359. Replace this text by Facebook. And we're going to need an icon, so we'll do the same thing that we did with the place icon. We'll use the icons from the mockups. Select them over here and copy paste them in your file. Just tidy this up a little bit. Okay, put them in place roughly. We're going to use the style from this icon, so copy the style and paste it to all these icons. Now let's adjust the positioning. Okay, and we're going to copy paste this text, but before put the social icons inside the social networks below the text. So Facebook, this is email, this is Flickr. We'll select these three, copy paste them, change to Twitter, Tumblr, and Foursquare. And finally, let's take care of the active state of these buttons. If people have selected one of these networks, it is crucial to show them that it is indeed selected. We've talked about that already. It is the feedback principle. So let's say Facebook is selected. We'll change the color of the text to 005782, and we'll change the color of the icon too. The gradient will go from 004F9B to 2796DA, and we can get rid of this border and of this shadow. Actually, we'll use an inner shadow, a kind of inside border, so Y0, blur 0, and spread 1 with black 6%. Let's zoom out, arrange a few things. Okay, I think we're done with this version. Dealing with that kind of design is a bit painful. There's a lot of gradients, shadows, inner shadows, but I just wanted to recreate the design of the iOS 6 version of Instagram. I think this approach lacks efficiency, and this interface could, in my opinion, look much better if it was simpler. As Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, the author of The Little Prince, said, "Perfection is achieved not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away." And I think there is room for improvement here. So come back as soon as you can, so we can start working on a redesign that will be quite cool, I think. Bye.